Seattle, the city of coffee, code, clouds, and culture. It's home to Amazon, Microsoft, the Space Needle, and enough rain to fill a lake. Most people know it as a tech hub in the Pacific Northwest, surrounded by forests, mountains, and Puget Sound. But beneath its famous skyline and iconic ferries lies a secret. Or rather, many of them. Because Seattle isn't just a city above ground, it's a layered, living organism built on top of the past, carved into the earth, and in some places, designed to outsmart it. From the remains of a city lost in fire to massive tunnels dug by record-breaking machines, what lies beneath Seattle might surprise you. Let's take a journey down through the layers of this remarkable city and uncover the stories, systems, and surprises hiding just beneath the surface. At first glance, downtown Seattle seems like any other urban core. Crosswalks buzzing with people, buses weaving between blocks, and storefronts lining steep hills that slope down toward the water. But what if I told you? The real city is underneath your feet, literally. In June of 1889, a fire broke out in a woodworking shop near what's now Pioneer Square. It spread fast, fueled by wooden buildings and tar-covered streets. Within hours, the entire central business district was in ruins, 30 city blocks gone. But instead of giving up, Seattle saw an opportunity. They didn't just rebuild the city, they raised it. The land was low, muddy, and prone to flooding. So the city decided to elevate the streets by a full story. New buildings were constructed at the new, higher level. But many of the original storefronts, sidewalks, and entryways remained, buried under layers of fill dirt, brick retaining walls, and concrete sidewalks. What you see on street level in Pioneer Square today isn't really street level at all. It's Seattle 2.0, perched above a ghost city of glass, stone, and silence. Beneath your feet, under the sidewalks of Seattle, lies the city that used to be. They call it the Seattle Underground, and you can actually tour parts of it. Walkways, hollow storefronts, staircases leading nowhere. It's a surreal experience. The floors are still paved in old bricks. Wooden support beams sag with age. Some rooms are flooded. Others are preserved with eerie perfection, like a time capsule waiting to be opened. When the streets were raised, businesses were told to move their entrances to the second floor. Now, the new sidewalk level. But for years, people still walked along the lower sidewalks, down in the dark, between the old street and the new one. Skylights were installed in the form of purple-tinted glass tiles embedded in sidewalks above, and you can still see them today, scattered across downtown, glowing faintly like forgotten eyes into the past. Eventually, the lower levels were closed off and abandoned. The city forgot about them, until curious explorers and historians dug them back up. But the underground isn't just a novelty or a tourist trap. It's the physical memory of a decision that changed Seattle forever. It's a reminder of how cities can be destroyed and rebuilt, layered on top of themselves like geological strata. And it's only the beginning of what's hidden below. If there's one thing Seattle is known for, it's the rain. The city doesn't always get the downpour people imagine. It's more of a constant drizzle, but it adds up. And that presents a big challenge under the surface. Seattle's original sewer system was a combined one. That means stormwater and household wastewater all flowed through the same pipes. It worked, until it didn't, especially when those famous Pacific Northwest rains got heavy. When stormwater overwhelmed the system, raw sewage would spill into Puget Sound. This isn't a problem from 100 years ago. This still happens today, although the city's been working hard to stop it. To reduce those spills, Seattle has invested in green stormwater infrastructure. That includes things like bioswales, rain gardens, and permeable pavement, all designed to slow water down and let it soak naturally into the ground. But the real action is still underground. One of the biggest recent efforts was the construction of a giant storage tunnel under the Ballard neighborhood. It's part of a multi-year project by Seattle Public Utilities and King County, aiming to catch and store overflow during storms, so it can be treated later. That tunnel runs about 2.7 miles long and is 18 feet in diameter, big enough to fit a semi-truck inside. And that's just one piece of a much larger underground puzzle. Seattle's got miles and miles of aging pipes, some over 100 years old. Engineers are constantly balancing repairs with upgrades, especially since parts of the city sit on hills, while others lie barely above sea level. Gravity is a key player in how the whole system works. In fact, if you dig even 10 or 15 feet in the wrong place here, you're likely to hit something: a sewer line, a storm drain, or maybe even a forgotten piece of pipe from an earlier era. Seattle's underground isn't just wet, it's dense, tangled, and evolving. While the pipes quietly handle the rain, there's another kind of tunnel deeper down, and it's built for people, not water. Seattle has a long and complicated relationship with public transportation. In the early 1900s, the city was full of electric streetcars and cable cars. Many of those lines were eventually removed or paved over, but the idea of underground transit never really left. Fast forward to the 1980s, and Seattle built something bold: the Downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel, or DSTT. Originally, it was meant for buses, and built with rails in place for light rail to arrive later. That tunnel stretches about 1.3 miles beneath downtown, with stations at key points like Westlake, University Street, and Pioneer Square. If you've ever ridden Link Light Rail through downtown, you've been in this tunnel. But there's more to it than most passengers ever realize. Beneath those stations are utility corridors, abandoned staging rooms, and cross passages, some of which are no longer in use, but still exist behind closed doors. There are even rumors of unused stub tunnels built in anticipation of future lines that never came to be. Some of these empty spaces have become the stuff of urban legend, accessible only to maintenance crews or curious urban explorers with old blueprints. And beyond the light rail, there's more. Beneath Seattle's Convention Center, a freight tunnel runs along an old train route. It was used in the early 20th century to bring supplies straight into downtown. Today, it's mostly dormant, a forgotten relic of when rail was the lifeblood of the city. Seattle's underground transit story is far from over. Light rail is expanding fast, with new stations and tunnels being bored across the city and suburbs. But for every new tunnel being dug, there's an old one somewhere beneath it, filled with echoes from a very different time. As we keep digging into Seattle, we start hitting something a little less predictable and a lot more dangerous. Seattle doesn't just sit on hills, it sits on a web of fault lines, ancient glacial sediments, and unstable soils, all wrapped around the looming presence of Mount Rainier, a potentially active volcano just 60 miles to the southeast. One of the most serious threats is the Seattle Fault, an east-west fault line that cuts right through downtown. It's largely invisible at the surface, but deep underground, it's been building pressure for centuries. Geologists believe it last ruptured around 900 AD, triggering a major earthquake and possibly even a tsunami in Puget Sound. And it could happen again. The city also lies near the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a massive offshore fault capable of generating magnitude 9.0 earthquakes, the kind that shake buildings, break roads, and rattle everything underground. To prepare, scientists have drilled deep boreholes across the region, using sensors to monitor soil shifts and seismic activity. These instruments can't prevent a quake, but they might give a few seconds of warning, just enough to slow a train, shut down a bridge, or let people take cover. And speaking of soil, that's another problem. Much of Seattle is built on fill, meaning man-made layers dumped onto soft, watery ground. In a big quake, that loose soil could liquefy, turning solid ground into something like quicksand. Buildings could tilt, pipes could snap, and tunnels could flood. That's why modern construction in Seattle isn't just about what you build. It's about how deep you anchor it. Foundations are drilled deeper than ever. Underground utilities are being upgraded to flex, bend, and absorb shocks. And new infrastructure has to be engineered with disaster in mind. All of this brings us to one of the boldest moves the city ever made, an effort to modernize its core while tunneling straight through that complicated, unstable ground. In the early 2010s, Seattle faced a big problem. The Alaskan Way Viaduct, a raised highway running along the city's waterfront, was aging badly and dangerously vulnerable to earthquakes. The solution? Replace it with a deep underground tunnel. Enter Bertha. Bertha was the world's largest tunnel boring machine at the time. 57 feet wide, longer than a football field, and weighing 7,000 tons. In 2013, she began digging the SR 99 tunnel, more than 200 feet below the streets of downtown Seattle. And almost immediately, something went wrong. Just 1,000 feet into her journey, Bertha hit a steel pipe left behind from a previous project. It didn't destroy her, but it caused internal damage. The machine stalled. Crews had to dig a massive vertical shaft, essentially a pit the size of a building, to access and repair her. The entire project was delayed for nearly 2 years, but Bertha came back. Slowly, she resumed tunneling, grinding her way through clay, sand, and glacial till. By 2017, she broke through to daylight again, having carved a 2-mile path under downtown Seattle. The tunnel officially opened in 2019. It now carries State Route 99 beneath the city in a sleek, lighted, air-filtered roadway, equipped with seismic sensors, emergency exits, and flood protection systems. It's a marvel of modern engineering, one that sits entirely below the surface. Bertha herself was dismantled and recycled, but her story is carved into Seattle's underground history. She was risky. She was controversial. She was expensive. But she gave the city something it desperately needed, and proved that even in unstable ground, with the right tools, you can build something strong. Not everything buried under Seattle was meant for transportation or utilities. Some of it was built out of fear. During the Cold War, Seattle was considered a potential target. It had Boeing, a major port, naval bases nearby, all things the military deemed high value. So beneath schools, government buildings, and even office towers, Seattle constructed fallout shelters designed to protect people from nuclear attacks. Some were simple reinforced rooms with thick concrete walls and air filtration systems. Others had backup generators, food storage, and emergency communication equipment. If you know where to look, you can still find the faded yellow fallout shelter signs on older buildings. Relics of a time when the biggest threat came from the sky. There were even plans to convert parts of the downtown transit tunnel into emergency shelters. While those plans were never fully realized, the fear was real enough to shape how some underground spaces were designed. Further out in the suburbs, remnants of Cold War defense installations still exist. Some hidden in forested parks, others buried under now quiet hills. A few were part of Seattle's part in Project Nike, a national network of anti-aircraft missile sites. These bunkers and silos have long been sealed, but they're part of the region's underground DNA, a story of a city preparing for the worst, just in case. And while most of these bunkers are no longer active, they still capture the imagination. Some have been repurposed. Others have become graffiti-covered chambers or forgotten storage rooms, but they remain a quiet reminder of how even fear leaves a footprint underground. The past may be buried beneath Seattle, but the city's future? That's heading even deeper. One of the largest ongoing infrastructure projects in the region is Sound Transit 3, a multi-billion-dollar expansion of the light rail network. Many of the new stations, especially in the more densely developed neighborhoods, will be dug deep below the surface. We're talking 100, 150, even 200 feet underground in some cases. These aren't just train platforms, they're architectural feats, with massive vertical elevator shafts, ventilation systems, and deep foundations designed to withstand seismic movement. And while the goal is transportation, the result is a city that's building its second identity below ground. At the same time, engineers and planners are thinking long-term about climate resilience. With sea levels rising and storms getting stronger, Seattle is considering deeper stormwater retention tunnels, essentially massive underground basins that could hold millions of gallons of runoff and prevent flooding. Then there are the deep boreholes being drilled by geologists, some stretching 500 feet or more into the earth, equipped with seismometers and sensors to help monitor and predict earthquakes in the future. So what's really happening beneath Seattle today? A second city is quietly growing. A network of tunnels, chambers, sensors, and stories that support the one we see above. A place shaped by water, fire, industry, and fear, but also by ingenuity and vision. From the ashes of a fire to the tunnels of tomorrow, Seattle is a city literally built on its own past. Every layer tells a story of disaster, adaptation, invention, and survival. Next time you walk the streets of Pioneer Square, ride the light rail, or look out across the Sound, remember, you're standing on top of something extraordinary. And who knows, maybe the most important parts of Seattle haven't even been dug yet. So, what lies beneath your city?